and welcome to Walking the Virtual Dog. This is the show where we take an in-depth look at the IT industry through the eyes of the industry's analysts. To make sense of it, we call on veteran industry analyst practitioner Thomas Ward Lynch, who joins us now. Thomas, transformation, is that what we're talking about today?
Well, you know what? First of all, Rick, you're looking good. All right, let's just go there, man.
That's why I love working with you, Thomas.
I tell you what, you got the sparkle. Yeah, actually, we're going to spend a little time. You know, the cool thing about IT is not just talking about IT for the sake of talking about IT. It's whenever it's applied to something. It's whenever we actually see business processes and we actually see real world examples of success because IT was applied appropriately, and also because that we have the IT analyst community, fortunately, to help guide us. They can help us get into the best place of best practices to where that we're doing the right things at the right time. And if anything, we can begin to plan our way through a process and transformation before we even begin it. Now, today's session, again, this every piece of research that we got this week was widely circulated. Everyone. And it was amazing to me how many folks wanted to talk about this subject. But it's not surprising. It's a discussion about smart manufacturing and suppliers and how supply chain executives can be successful if they use smart factory operations. Now, smart factory means, it's in other words, another term for it would be, the dark factory. You know what I mean? The factory that has very little human interaction because most of the processes have been completely automated, or as we use the term around here a lot, digitized. And smart factory operations, when they're applied correctly, they can help supply chain leaders achieve some of the highest priorities. But many companies underestimate the challenges of running such a facility. That's the challenge. So that's because successful smart factory initiatives require accompanying cultural and operational transformations that are slow by nature, and in many cases will require entirely new organizational designs to integrate the new capabilities within the broader supply chain. Now, it's not murky if we have the analysts to help guide us, and that's exactly what happened in this case. To enumerate those hurdles, Gartner drafted 5 top risks to avoid when launching new smart factory initiatives. So let's go through the list, the 5. Okay, starting with number 1, confusing factory optimization with business model transformation. And the optimization benefits, Rick, of a small smart factory, small and efficient, are confined to that single site. But when the smart factory initiatives are disconnected from the rest of the supply chain, the site level benefits can come at the expense of creating costly constraints elsewhere in the business. And this risk can be mitigated by ensuring that factory objectives are synchronized with the supply chain operating models and enterprise digital ambitions, flexibility, automation, and opportunities. Number 2, overlooking the scope of change management. Boy, is that a big one. New technology acquisition may be straightforward and relatively cheap, but underestimating the resulting changes to existing processes and integrations and new performance targets can drive up both costs and time. The risk can be managed in part by treating such changes as part of an enterprise-wide initiative that requires alignment between senior leadership and the utilization of continuous improvement teams to ensure initiatives are properly sequenced. Rick, I think I might see the resurrection of quality circles.
Oh, right. Some of those old tools might come back into favor, right?
That was only my master's thesis, yes.
Wow.
Number 3, underestimating the complexity of aligning and converging IT, OT, and ET. Governance for small factories is not just centered on plant business connections, but also on how information technology, operational technology, and engineering technology are managed. These 3 are inseparable, and their convergence and alignment are critical as production models change. To mitigate the complexity of this risk, supply chain leaders should familiarize themselves with alternative organizational models for IT/OT alignment and involve governance and organizational structures in line with new production models. Number 4, insufficient funding. Oh, we didn't plan on that, so therefore we didn't fund it. Insufficient funding for upskilling, reskilling, and talent development. This is a human process, Rick. Modernizing and learning development programs, that is learning and development programs, or as they call it for short, L&D, to help associates learn, acquire, and retain knowledge, to acquiesce to new experiences is essential. So too is enabling employees to execute the work they are aligned to support through additional education and upskilling. Now, finally, number 5, narrowly focusing on a single use case and technology. Oh boy, that's a big one. Because it takes a whole lot more, as we mentioned earlier, the connectivity with IT, OT, and ET, as well as syncing up with HR to make sure that the skills are in the right place at the right time. Well, that requires a lot of use cases. It also requires a lot of technology. And it also requires something that someone told me once when I walked into an office of a really large and very old company, like over 150 years old. And I said, "What do you think this company needs more than anything else?" She immediately said, without hesitation, communication.
Yeah, makes sense.
As technology options increase and expand, too much focus on enabling technologies, in other words, the new stuff, and the art of the possible can expose organizations to a significant IT backlog and technical debt. The environment is complicated by the fact there is no single dominant technology or vendor that fulfills all smart factory requirements. Let me repeat that. There is no single dominant technology or vendor that fulfills all smart factory requirements. You have to look around, you have to shop, you have to evaluate, and you cannot count on a single use case. It is going to be many. Technology purchases must be balanced between strategic considerations, such as the ability to scale, along with the pragmatic, what's realistic here, such as planning appropriately for operational disruptions. I thought that this was an absolute gem of
Yeah.
guidelines and risk and also recommendations on the part of Gartner. I applaud their team for putting it together and making it so easy to comprehend and understand. And of course, that came from Simon Jacobson, who's the vice president of Gartner's supply chain practice.
Well, I got to tell you, Thomas, it was a bit of a roller coaster ride for me because you got me excited in the beginning with this smart factories and this lights out manufacturing, but that's a lot of ways you could mess that up.
There is a lot of ways to mess it up, and the funny thing is that, as Jacobson points out very accurately, it can be messing up things that aren't even on the floor or even in that facility if it's not connected to the rest of the supply chain. So, interesting way to take a look at everything and all of the different aspects that need to be in sync in order for smart factory models to operationally be successful.
Very good. Folks, you're going to want to tune in. Keep tuning in. Next time, we're talking about blockchain, aren't we?
We are talking about a revolution in blockchain. Actually,
Interesting.
there is some emerging technologies that are very, very exciting to look at. We'll talk about the announcement and also the vendor that announced it, but we'll also talk about the fabulous results that could be coming as a result of this proof of concept that has now been released. It's exciting.
I can't wait. All right. Like and subscribe to make sure that you're notified before the next show comes up. And don't be afraid to tune in next time on Walking the Virtual Dog.